Happy 10th anniversary and welcome to my Into the Pit review. It's so good to be a Fnaf fan right now, and let me tell you, the hype is real. No matter where you stand with the Secrets of the Mimic game, stupid title in my opinion, or with the Dead by Daylight collab, since most Fnaf fans don't actually consume non-mascot related horror, this is a huge deal for Five Nights at Freddy's as a franchise. Regardless of all this big news and celebration though, today we have Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit. And I've actually been super excited for the release of this game since its initial announcement. And while I'm currently not the biggest fan of the Into the Pit book, the hype for me was the possibility of changing what made the book a weaker story, so to say, when compared to To Be Beautiful and Count the Ways, which were in the same novel. Huge spoiler warning for every little bit of content included in Into the Pit, because I think it's time we get into why I think Into the Pit is both some of the best and worst, yes, we'll get into it, showings of what this series has to offer as a whole. So I'm actually going to section off this review into a bunch of different little parts to make it a little bit more digestible. I'm going to start off with the story, give you the pros and cons that I have on that, going to the bugs, then the lore. After that, I'll talk about my personal gripes, a little bit on the extra endgame content that this game has, and then I will give you the sum up, which is just supposed to be about a paragraph or two of my final thoughts, all combined into one explanation. So starting off with the story, I actually think this is probably one of the strongest parts of the game, but it also shows some of the weaker elements right off the bat. And kicking off the pros, we have the extra depth that's added to the dad's character, which is very much appreciated because I really like the scene of the dad driving away when he first drops off Oswald, because you can see how he laments not being able to spoil his kid. He clearly wants to and already works hard, but thinks of himself as almost a bad dad for not being able to do so. I really like this addition because obviously it gives that extra little bit of depth. In the actual Into the Pit book, it never really delved too deep into what the parents thought on the closing of the mill. It was very brief because the focus kept just going back to the time-traveling ball pit and Freddy's in the 1980s, which is obviously not the most emotionally compelling thing. Now, of course, this is one of the main selling points. It has some incredible art to go along with and convey the story. Oh my god, it is so beautifully animated. I love how fluid some of these animations look, and while I'm still pretty mad that we don't actually get Foxy in the game, what we have is certainly a sight for sore eyes. Now, paired along with the art is actually some really great QTEs. If you don't know what a QTE or QuickTime event is, it's basically being able to interact with fully rendered cutscenes. So it just adds a little bit of immersion for the already predetermined outcome. And they use this to pretty decent effect. Now, I realize that I'm a little biased in this category, but I do think that this game is a complete step up in the horror for the franchise. The fact that I stream practically all of my games kind of mitigates a lot of that, just due to the fact that I have to be super high energy and have to be cracking jokes, since that's typically like my selling point. But actually, doing some research on my own time while playing the game, I didn't actually notice that the game made me jump when I wasn't paying attention. I was like, oh, wait a minute, that scared me. Oh, shit. But anyway, it is very obvious that this game leans a lot more into horror than practically any of the other Five Nights at Freddy's games up until this point, and that is very much appreciated. So while Oswald and his father don't really share too much screen time together within the game, I will say the father-son dynamic is very cute, and I wish we could have just seen a little bit more of that. I really enjoyed watching them get closer together and bond, not because of their situation, but despite it. Now, I will say, the book did admittedly have a slow setup at the early beginning of the book, and the game does cut that out. And while I do think some of that setup was necessary and probably shouldn't have gotten cut out, it definitely helps the game go a little bit faster into the actual action. And of course, that leads me to my next point. I think this game is very faithful to the book. Now, this is actually both good and bad. We'll get into that very soon. But let me just say, seeing some of the shots recreated in the game was an absolute delight to the eyes. And I'm here for it. I would like to see more of the books in this style. It certainly kept me interested. Just with the prior knowledge of going in, you could absolutely go into this game blind. But just having that extra knowledge of the books absolutely helps.
Especially for some secrets later.
Now on to the cons that the story brings. And we're right back here. This is indeed very faithful to the book. So it keeps all the slow sections, all the bad characters that don't matter, that appear once and then disappear, never to be seen. And it still has all of the padding and none of the charm. Of course, I'm talking about the like schizo shit that happens within the game. It loses all of the charm that the book actually had, delving into how Oswald was feeling. Because in the game, it's kind of played off in seconds, and then we're just moved on to the next thing, despite the fact that we have so much extra runtime that the book just didn't have. And that's actually another huge point for the cons. This game has way too much padding. It adds like 3 extra days, and for every night that you're at the pizzeria, there's a kid that you just kind of randomly have to save that night. And it's really strange because it calls into question the motives of the Spring Bonnie animatronic thing, right? Why are we shown the room full of the dead kids if we now have these strange kidnapped kids? It really just doesn't make sense, and it absolutely feels like padding if you did read the book. Now, this was actually one of my gripes for the book as well, but the ending just wraps up way too quickly. I am still in complete disbelief that Oswald just kind of slaps around the rabbit a little bit and then he like chokes himself to death on the play structure. It's kind of ridiculous. Gabrielle is supposed to be a kind of side character to Oswald during this time where he thinks that he's going crazy because no one else can see this rabbit and he's like questioning his own psyche. Gabrielle pops up and she gives him like the courage or something to be like a Greek hero, but she just kind of appears. She tells Oswald about Greek mythology, and in the game it's basically the same thing. She tells him about the Greek mythology and how they have courage or whatever, and then she gives him a random book which can be used to gain knowledge on how to deal with the animatronics in the later nights. And it's so stupid. She appears for like 5 seconds after that interaction, and then never again. Same thing with the bully. The bully is just there to like slightly antagonize Oswald and then like play into his schizophrenic visions or whatever. Like the end of his little arc is just that he gets tackled by Oswald during one of the visions and then we just never see him again. Like he's hardly even a bully. Oswald never even like reacts to the things he says. It's so stupid. Speaking of unused characters, 3 out of the 5 locations that you are actually able to visit are completely underused. They are so very sparsely visited. You visit the library in the story once, and you don't even enter the library. You talk to some kid outside and you get some firecrackers. It's completely unrelated, don't ask. And then Gabrielle appears for those 5 seconds that I was talking about, and then wow, we're gone. We get stolen away by fake dad. And it's so stupid. The school, you visit there like twice, and you stay there for maybe like 5 minutes in total. And then once again, there's the mill. You only have to visit the mill like literally twice again. And you stay there for maybe 10 seconds if you just mash E. And despite all this, the game still feels slow. It's so weird. It's simultaneously really long feeling and sluggish, but it's like only a 4-hour experience. It's a short game. I didn't actually write this one down in my script, but I'm just gonna tack this one on. We'll get into it a little bit later, but I really don't like the endings. The endings kind of suck. One of them is a joke ending, and that one was pretty silly. That one got a good laugh out of me. But then there are the star endings, and they're all just so dumb. I think the craziest example I can bring up is probably the 2-star ending compared to the 3-star ending. If you get the 2-star ending, it will put you in the credits after whatever your cutscene happens. But in the 3-star ending, rather than going to the credits immediately, it just shows a like 10-second clip of the family being happy, and then it rolls credits. And it's like, wow, I did like these 4 extra prerequisites before doing the final confrontation. Why am I being rewarded with this absolute garbage? I had to like look for secrets to do this. But moving on, here we have the bugs. I actually got a few soft locks during my playthrough, and apparently they are kind of just littered around the game. And whether or not they're being patched out currently or not, a patch actually released while I was recording this, I don't care. Games shouldn't be broken on release. I really will never accept that. Now, I've only heard about 2 different instances of crashes happening. In the patch notes themselves, it said it got rid of instances of rare crashes. So that's that, I guess. And this is not to mention that there are just some like really bad autosaves and non-functional autosaves that probably should happen. What is a bug is the audio. I don't know if it's me specifically or not, but I had so many instances of audio just like popcorning and clipping in and out. It was really bad on my second day. And once again, I don't know if it's me or not. I had like separate music and things playing in the background that had none of those issues, so I was 99% certain that it was the game, but I just have to list that regardless.
Okay, so the first night is never usually that bad in any of the games, so I'll play through. Ah, fuck! What the fuck? Oh! Oh!
Oh god, I don't think I'm certified to talk about this one. Let's talk about the lore. Let's talk about the lore. I'm sure that'll be good. Now, of course, I'm not, like, smart, so I'm probably not gonna talk about how this may relate to anything within the franchise, whether canonicity actually matters or not. I don't really care. I'm just gonna list what I think was, like, lore significant or relevant within the game that I saw. I'm just gonna list this off like a grocery shopping list. So number 1, I thought this one actually might be tied to, like, secret endings. I was wrong. It was a phone guy, and I actually really don't like this one. Specifically because they got rid of the old script for the original phone guy in Fnaf 1, and they gave him kind of like a dull personality, where he sounds like some cheap knockoff of the Fnaf 1 phone guy. So, yeah, hashtag not my phone guy. And then we have Purple Guy, and for some reason his sprite looks like a fucking lizard. Now, there are actually several book references, which is really cool for all the book readers that want to point at the screen and go like, oh, this is the thing! We have To Be Beautiful, the minigame. We have a Count the Ways reference, which I don't really get it, but it's a secret minigame. We have a Kids at Play reference, which is another Fazbear Frights book that I haven't actually read yet. And then we have a Twisted Ones poster, which I actually noticed like last stream, and I was pretty hyped for that. I was like, oh wow, Twisted Ones. That was a book that I read. Wow. So let's talk about the extra end game content. Now, I made a pros and cons section for this one as well, because there are actually some pretty good things for the end game content. As per usual, there are some fun achievements like getting all endings, getting some stuff in the mini games, and then fixing the arcade machines, which I actually really enjoyed, by the way. I loved fixing the arcades. That was really awesome. Moving away from the achievements, there are some just like fun items that may or may not be lore relevant. I don't really know. There's a Freddy mask that like drops during day 2, and I think I enjoyed the joke and the losing ending a lot more than the actual winning endings, just due to the fact that they didn't have much diversity.
Right?
I lied.
Now, unfortunately, we have to move on to the cons. Of course, the cherry on top is the goddamn stupid-ass intern achievements. I only started using that term several months back, but here are some examples. Flick switch 87 times. Eat 10 candies. To be fair, this one is kind of related to a secret minigame, but you're gonna need to eat a lot more candy. Trip 100 times, because yes, somebody had to add a trip mechanic. Really cool. Get 404 tickets. You only need 100 to pretty much max out everything, by the way. Finish the game without being caught. Finish the game without using the flashlight. Any ending in Nightmare. Those are pretty much all of the worst ones I could find. A lot of the other ones are kind of just progression based. You'll get them as you normally play the game. Now, I'm sure we all hate these kind of achievements, right? But once again, that wouldn't be a problem if the game was just like endlessly replayable. But it's not. There's actually like no replayability. You can get all the endings in one save file pretty easily, might I add, as long as you're not incompetent like me. So here it is. If you didn't want to hear me break down everything individually, this is my sum up for all the good that the game has to offer. Here we go. This game is a breath of fresh air from the typically lore-heavy reveals that most of the other games try to convey / tie in, and I thought it was decently fun on my first playthrough. I enjoyed the references that I noted, assuming they're all self-contained and not lore reveals, right? And had a good time spotting them without going out of my way to actually try and notice them. I'm actually a big fan of the minigames and how simple they were. The stellar soundtrack and visuals are absolutely a treat to behold, and is a fun little 4-ish hour experience, assuming nothing out of the ordinary happens regarding the bugs and the softlocks and this and that. A nice little bite-sized Fnaf game. This game is a very YouTube-friendly game, just like Sister Location and Ruin, I would say, for the first playthrough. The book's story is haphazardly tossed in with little to no revision, and it ultimately hurts the game. This should have had way more extra endgame content that isn't just speedrun achievements or extra difficulty. This is all ignoring the fact that 60% of the cutscenes can't even be skipped. What's the point of a timer? In other words, there's fundamentally no other way you can go through the game once you've completed it. It will be practically the same experience every single time. The 3 major endings are sparsely different from each other and are wildly different to obtain when it comes to collectibles. That, by the way, are littered in every major area you go to. If this game got some free DLC, adding some actual quests, side stories, locations, character development, anything actually replayable and fun, I think maybe this game would be worth the $20 asking price. Yeah, I was waiting to reveal that one for a while now. It should only take you 10 hours max to 100% this game without knowing what you're doing, assuming of course the game is fully functional and you don't run into any problems. Now, I've somewhat slandered this game. I kind of tore it to shreds, like it was the second coming of Security Breach. But it's not that bad. It's a pretty good game. At the end of the day, I'm just so tired of all these super lackluster, confusing, lore-heavy, buggy-ass games. To be fair, I've done 3 entire marathons where I play all 17 Fnaf games, give or take, straight to completion. And while Into the Pit certainly shows some hints of the former blemishes from the Fnaf franchise, it's far from bad. Mega Cat did an absolutely amazing job with the materials they were given, and I'm excited to see what can be done with the other books. Now, I think I've been going on long enough about this game. I'm on page 5 right now, dear lord. So here's my final verdict. I think this game is a 7 out of 10. And while I'm being generous with this ranking here, unfortunately, I cannot recommend going out and buying this game. Of course, I'm not the end-all be-all. By all means, go buy this game for yourself. Go support Mega Cat Studios' latest work. But that's gonna be about it from me. If you enjoyed this video and want more, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe for notifications, and follow me on Twitch, because chances are I'm going to be live soon after you watch this video. Make sure, of course, to join the Discord down below if you want the exact streaming schedule I produce every Saturday, and as always, lots of love to everyone. Happy 10th anniversary, guys. 10 years. And have a day.